Okay, from the very beginning, from the first moment, I may almost say, of my acquaintance with you, your manners, impressing me with the fullest belief of your arrogance, assert him, okay? Your conceit. And when you propose, you know, this is not what you're expecting, okay? You're not expecting this kind of comeback, okay? Your arrogance, your conceit, and your selfish disdain of the feelings of others were such as to form the groundwork of disapprobation, on which succeeding events have built so immovable a dislike. And I had not known you a month before I felt that you were the last man in the world whom I could ever be prevailed on to marry. It's not a mild rebuke, okay? It's not a soft remark. It's, you know, she really is thumping him. You know, after he's made himself vulnerable, the high standing, the attractive, the looked up to Mr. Darcy has made himself vulnerable, rejectable before this beautiful young girl of a lower class, okay? And she thumps him. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. So tonight's talk is called Pride and Prejudice, Lessons for Lovers, okay? So what is it? It's theology of the body before theology of the body, okay? 18th century, England, formal, kind of romantic, perhaps on the edges as well, or in some way, but a very more stricter society of courtship rules, of finance, of propriety. And into this world comes the vicar's daughter, Jane Austen, who writes in secret, behind the door, you could say, almost say, in the vicar's lodge, in the vicarage at a little table. And she's a very talented observer of human manners, okay? And what manners conceal, what manners give away. And she's always going to the substance of things. So she has a certain vision. She has a certain insight into human character. And Pride and Prejudice, one of her 6 great novels, probably the most famous, I'm sure certainly the most popular. So we'll have a look at some of the observations she had. One of her early title for Pride and Prejudice was First Impressions, okay? And it is about first impressions. There's a lot turn on the first impressions, or turn again on first impressions in Pride and Prejudice. So, okay. No, backwards. Okay, so it's the story, the love story, let's call it, between Mr. Darcy and Elizabeth Bennet. Okay, they come from different social ranks. Elizabeth is more middle class, in between kind of ranks, but he's certainly quite aristocratic. He's much richer. He is much more provided for. Okay, so there's a social gap when they first meet, but it doesn't stop this this early fascination, this growing, you know, attraction, you could say, towards each other, towards the person, but it doesn't go, you know, evenly and smoothly, okay? So this is what Mr. Darcy seems to have thought of Elizabeth when he first looked at her, or came across her when she first crossed his path, okay? Mr. Darcy had at first scarcely allowed her to be pretty. He had looked at her without admiration at the ball, and when they next met, he looked at her only to criticize. But no sooner had he made it clear to himself and his friends that she hardly had a good feature in her face than he began to find it was rendered uncommonly intelligent by the beautiful expression of her dark eyes. To this discovery succeeded some others equally mortifying, though he had detected with the critical eye more than one failure of perfect symmetry in her form, we'd say figure today, I suppose. He was forced to acknowledge her figure to be light and pleasing, and in spite of his asserting that her manners were not those of the fashionable world, he was caught by their easy playfulness. So he's a bit snobbish, he's a bit selective, he's got high standards on different levels, okay? But at the same time, the form and the personality and the gaiety of Elizabeth does attract. And sometimes the attraction is not so conscious, okay? Sometimes we're not always aware in the man-woman world who actually really attracts us. And for what reason. So here's a nice little telling word from Jane Austen. Mr. Darcy began to feel the danger of paying Elizabeth too much attention. Okay, red flags, danger zone, going over the threshold, stay away, keep your distance, all these things, all the little kind of things, little amber lights going on there, okay? So just be careful, okay? But it's good. It's her insight into his inscape or into his personality. But it's a lovely way of putting it. No. Oh, okay. Okay. So a little philosophy, Jane Austen, she can communicate the contemporary idioms, the way of looking at the world, the old proverbs that, English Protestants, would have had at that time in the English religion, English Christians would have had that time. How little of permanent happiness could belong to a couple who were only brought together because their passions were stronger than their virtue. Okay, so that's a commonplace wisdom, okay? Feelings first is not a good philosophy, okay? Feelings first is kind of shallow. That's the 18th century way of putting it, okay? And then the opposite, Lizzie, one of Elizabeth's friends, I think, says to her here, do anything rather than marry without affection. So what's the great torment or thing to be avoided? A cold, mundane, routine, feelingless marriage, which you're contracted into. And because of the social philosophy at the time, because of the social etiquette, that was quite possible. Okay, and that happened commonly. Okay, so again, Jane Austen's playing with these ideas. Okay, how people really think, and what's their proverbial wisdom as well. Okay, so they have a deeper sense of that. At the same time, they want this they want a bit more. I suppose we say spice today. In a nice sense. Okay. In vain I have struggled. It will not do. My feelings will no longer be repressed. You must allow me to tell you how ardently I admire and love you. Okay, so Mr. Darcy is out. Okay, do you understand? Like, he's in a good sense. Okay, he's declaring his affection in a very emphatic scene with Elizabeth. Okay, but you got that for me. Okay, so this is what he says. Okay, from the very beginning, from the first moment, I may almost say, of my acquaintance with you, your manners, impressing me with the fullest belief of your arrogance, assert him, okay? Your conceit, and when you propose, this is not what you're expecting, okay? You're not expecting this kind of comeback, okay? Your arrogance, your conceit, and your selfish disdain of the feelings of others were such as to form the groundwork of disappropriation disapprobation, on which succeeding events have built so immovable a dislike. And I had not known you a month before I felt that you were the last man in the world whom I could ever be prevailed on to marry. It's not a mild rebuke, okay? It's not a soft remark. It's, she really is thumping him. After he's made himself vulnerable, the high standing, the attractive, the looked up to Mr. Darcy has made himself vulnerable, rejectable before this beautiful young girl of a lower class, okay? And she thumps him, okay? Because he kind of made a mess of it at the same time, okay? And he was, First Impressions is that early title of the book, because Mr. Darcy, he doesn't present himself well, okay? He's not the charmer, okay? He's not the person with the easy words, okay? He's not the one who will chat you up, okay? He's much more reserved, much more harder to get to know. He's the dark horse, really. Yeah, he's the proverbial dark horse, okay? And she doesn't like him, okay? Because she thinks he's snobby, thinks he's arrogant, all these things, okay? And she's pretty firm in this as well, okay? Let me see. Oh, back again. Okay, but there's a twist in the novel. You can read it yourselves, okay? When she actually, his true character, more of the man, more of the gentleman, more of his, I suppose, his Christian character comes to the fore, okay? When he saves her family from a scandal, okay? And he says, I did it for you, all for you, okay? She sees, she got it wrong, okay? The first impressions were actually off. Her perception, her acuteness, she got it wrong, as we often do ourselves, She said, this is her criticizing herself, talking to herself in a sense. How despicably I have acted, she cried. I who have prided myself on my discernment. I who have valued myself on my abilities. Who have often disdained the generous candour of my sister and gratified my vanity in useless or blamable mistrust. How humiliating is this discovery? Till this moment, I never knew myself. Interesting, because she's kind of discovering herself through this attraction to the masculine, to the man. Okay, she's been changed by him, and he's been changed by her. That's the beauty probably of the novel, okay? And both discovering each other in a sense. It's T.O.B. before T.O.B., because that's all T.O.B. She reveals him to himself. Okay, they reveal each other to each other. That's what man and woman do, okay? You find things about yourself you didn't know when you meet someone who really is that person who's going to be your spouse, who's going to be your husband, or you see things about yourself, you discover things about yourself you never really knew, okay? And hopefully they'll come to fruition in a long life together, in that sense, okay? That's the beauty of this novel as well, okay? It's a really, a kind of a roller coaster, It's kind of like, it's not straight lines at all. But it's interesting how the characters develop and how Jane Austen is able to draw out this drama and this inner drama as well, this inner, recovery, humiliation, of oneself, even in this case. Okay, so let's look again more at Elizabeth. BBC version here, okay, of that film. The respect created by the conviction of his valuable qualities, though at first unwillingly admitted, had for some time ceased to be repugnant to her feelings. And it was now heightened into somewhat of a friendlier nature by the testimony so highly in his favour, and bringing forward his disposition in so amiable a light, which yesterday had produced. When you change your mind? When you're influenced by the crowd, perhaps? Influenced by your own prejudice? you could say. How to come back from that journey, something has to happen in your heart. Something has to happen in your inner being, okay? What Jane Austen's able to do here, she said, to show you how Elizabeth is returning to a new way of looking at Mr. Darcy. Okay, see her on the journey back, okay? The softening of her heart. Cease to be repugnant to her feelings. Somehow heightened into something of a friendlier nature, okay? And again, okay, but above all, above respect and esteem, there was a motive within her of goodwill which could not be overlooked. It was gratitude. Gratitude not merely for having once loved her, but for loving her still well enough to forgive all the petulance and acrimony of her manner in rejecting him, and all the unjust accusations accompanying her rejection. He's a much bigger man than she ever thought he was. He's got much more substance. He's got much more character. You know, I tell you, if I weren't a priest and I was a single man and I got the rebuke he got, I'd have gone to South America, you know. I wouldn't be coming back a second time. And I think 95% of men would not come back a second time, okay? But he came back, even though he was jilted, okay? He came back. So, and he put up with these slights to his character, okay? This kind of dressing down that he got, okay? And she can see it. She's thinking that. She's working through what he worked through. Do you understand? She's observing him. And she's getting, you know, this is even when they dance together in the early scene. I know the film about it because it's a long time since I've read the book, but, you know, she's, what is your character? You know, she's trying to suss, you know, we say today in Ireland, we'd say, if you're not in Ireland, we say suss, okay? It means she's trying to suss him out, okay? Is he what he appears to be? Or is there something more, okay? Here in the novel, there's something more. Okay, and there's a lot to enjoy and to be grateful, you know, thanksgiving. You know, Balthasar says Jesus is thanksgiving in person, okay? He's thankful because he receives everything from the Father. So this gratitude of hers is a Christian sentiment. Pride and Prejudice is a Christian novel, okay? It's about purity, it's about right intentions, it's about doing things the right way, it's about looking for the right person, okay? That's why it's so attractive, because it touches something in us. Even today, you know. So, not that Mr. Darcy is perfect, okay? This is what he says, okay? I have been a selfish being all my life. In practice, though not in principle. As a child, I was taught what was right, but I was not taught to correct my temper. I was given good principles, but left to follow them in pride and conceit, okay? So, no perfect, you know, he's not a perfect guy, okay? And he has brought up, you know, in a haughty way, okay? And that's, you know, there's a puffed up thing there as well, okay? So, such I was from 8 to 8 and 20, and to 8 and 20, okay? So 8 years old until 28, okay? And such I might still have been, but for you, dearest, loveliest Elizabeth. What do I not owe you? You taught me a lesson, hard indeed at first, but most advantageous. By you, I was properly humbled. I came to you without a doubt of my reception. You showed me how insufficient were my pretensions to please a woman worthy of being pleased. Okay, that's a nice twist again, isn't it? Again, his own self-discovery, his own growth, you could say. Is he haughty? Is he temperamental? Is he arrogant? Yeah, he is. You know? How did he discover that? Not by going on a self-made course, you're not going on a psychological course. He met someone, okay, who pointed it out to him in the most humiliating of circumstances, okay? But you know, she's his match in a different way. They're very alike in some ways, but he learns about himself He's learning himself through her in one sense, and that's kind of ironic in the story. So there's growth here, and there's betterment as well in his character, in his way of. Oh, is that it? Okay, that's it. Okay, okay. So teaching gentle manliness. Okay. How do you knock off the rough edges of people, you know? I don't think you can knock off the rough edges of people, you know, but sometimes in the play, in the drama of human attraction, of human love, we are called to raise the bar. We are called to raise standards by the dignity of the other, by the loveliness of the other. And that's a good thing, okay, you know? St. Thomas Aquinas says, you know, that man is perfected by a suitable good. We're bettered and perfected by a suitable good, you know. Suitable good in this case is Elizabeth Bennet. Suitable good, unusual good is Fitzwilliam Darcy. Okay, so that's it. Okay, any questions on that or any thoughts on that? You know, just kind of... Yes?
I know you said that you can't change someone else.
Yeah.
But I heard this analogy once, and I was wondering what you thought of it. That couples, it's kind of like how Michelangelo saw potency in the marble,
Yeah.
and he drew the form of David out, for instance.
Yeah.
So the example that I listened to was saying that couples can do that too. They can see the greatness of like the man or woman that their spouse can become.
Yeah.
So you start drawing that out by calling them together, but at the same time, you're not the one that has the agency. I don't know. I was wondering if you could elaborate on that at all.
Yeah, it's kind of an illusion. I was listening on the radio not so long ago about this, you know, just this very thing, you know, that people do sometimes enter into marriage thinking, I'll change him. You know, that, you know, I suppose mostly the woman in this case, you know. And that can be illusionary, you know. I think a change for betterment is the grace of God, you know. I mean, it can happen through the courtship. It can happen through the nature of the encounter between man and woman. Okay, that we're kind of a quarry for each other, you know, that sense, you know. But I'd say, don't give in to disillusion or illusionment, a certain illusion that we are going to change someone, you know. But it is also true that suitable spouses, you know, even James Joyce has that saying, as God made them, he matched them. Okay, like I can even see it in my parents' marriage. I can see that they're different personalities, but they have kind of a matching. You know, they're different. My mother's very different personality to my dad, but they work together. They complement each other, you know. And I think that's true. Yeah, I think, you know what, let's hope that marriage is sanctifying, that it does draw, with the grace of Christ, it will draw out the best in us. And true love can deepen, you know. And that's a kind of a jumbled answer, but, you know, I'm agreeing with you and kind of saying at the same time, you know, we have to be careful as well. Yeah. Anyone else?
Well, the movie, if you have a favorite part of the movie or in the book, Pride and Prejudice, if you have.
Favorite? Yeah, good question. Yeah, if I have a favorite part of it, I like the dance scenes in the movie. I like when they kind of square up to each other and she looks at him and he looks at her and she's kind of sussing him out and she's kind of squaring up. And it's that fabulous actress, what's her name? Keira Knightley, yeah. So I like the dance scenes. I think they're done very well. I think that movie is one of my favorites. So I think they do things really well, and they get a lot of Pride and Prejudice in that one movie, and it's not a very long movie, you know. That's my answer, yeah. But that's when she asked about the character. You know, what is your character? You know, and also there's kind of funny scenes going on. There's her sister playing at the piano. There's her father, and there's kind of folly in her family, foolishness and things like that. So there's kind of comedy as well, you know, going on. So, okay, that's it, yeah. Go ahead.
What I really liked was that he knew that he wasn't perfect, she called him higher, and he he responded, and he wants to respond. Is that always a prudent thing to do? Like, sometimes people fight so hard to be in relationships. Like, is that a good thing? Like, is it good to want to fight? Or sometimes it can be that people are hoping that this person will be right for them, but they're not, and so they're kind of, in a sense, wasting their time trying to stay in a relationship. I know in their case it was different, but overall, like, usually the secular mindset is that, well, if it didn't go well, it's not going to go well. So they don't persevere, they don't try to figure things out between each other. So how can couples kind of overcome these obstacles? Like, should they overcome them, and how can they overcome them?
Yeah, I mean, that is discernment, You don't know a person over a very short period of time, but you do have to look out for dispositions, for character traits that begin to reveal themselves, maybe sometimes in acute moments in a relationship, and they're telling signs. You may not see them, you may be charmed. We tend to be charmed. We tend to be kind of blown off our feet, overwhelmed, So we're like that because the emotions are so spontaneous, they're so natural, and they're so lovely, okay? That happens to us, okay? But there's that deeper discernment as well, or that listening, well, to the Spirit of God, and listening to people who are good advisors at times, people of good character. Sometimes if you're a practicing Catholic, you might have a spiritual director. There may be a priest you can go to, that maybe be able to help you with the whole thing, if you just don't know. Sometimes we leave it too individualistic. Do you understand? And the thing about this book really as well is that we can actually get it wrong. And we can get it very wrong. That's the whole thing, because we're human, because we're fallen. And, we're part fallen, part redeemed, that kind of sense. But that'd be my answer. I think you need external observers as well. You do. I mean, I say it now and again. You do need your best friends committee. They can be very helpful at times. Sometimes not always. You may need that objective third person point of view, which ideally is a very good spiritual director. Okay, because we can also get trapped in something that's not right. And that can be very dangerous for our moral life, for our spiritual life, for our happiness, and that still happens, I'm afraid, yeah. Last question, or anyone? No?
I'll say something else. I think what struck me recently, I actually reread the book in the last couple of months. I think generally everyone kind of sees how much Darcy changes from the start to the finish.
Yeah.
But what hit me this time was how much Elizabeth had to change.
Yeah.
How much she realised she was just wrong in how she perceived him. She was prideful, she was prejudiced, all these things that she associated with him.
Yeah.
She had to come to confront in herself.
Yeah.
And then change and overcome.
Yeah.
And also then the humiliation of how she completely put him down and completely detested him and told everybody.
Yeah.
She did not spare telling everybody what she thought of him.
No.
And then she had to come full circle to realize he was a lot better than she thought she
Yeah.
thought he was.
Yeah.
He also changed a lot as well.
Yeah.
To come back around to all of that, I think there were some quotes on there before about how she was coming to gradually have that softening of her feelings towards him.
Yeah.
But it just from the beginning, I guess because I had read it before, from the beginning to the end, I was completely hit by the fact that she was just so wrong in her understanding.
Yeah.
It was very interesting.
Yeah, that's very interesting. You read it a different way the second time, or yeah. I think that's true. Yeah. They both change. Well, that's kind of, I don't know. That's a grace, It's yeah. Okay, we'll leave it there. Is that okay? Okay. Yeah. Thanks. Sorry. Okay. Bye bye.